Good morning, children. Grandpa Coyote here with you again. And it's a rockin' beautiful day, I tell you. There's a moon, a little waning moon, a little sliver of it. But it lights up the sky, pretty good, really, for a little sliver of a moon. And I don't know if any of you have noticed, the last couple of moons have been really, really bright. August and September of 2011. These have been some very bright and intense moons. Now what does that tell you? Well, if the moon's bright, that must mean the sun's brighter. We don't seem to see it or notice it in the daylight. In fact, it seems a little hazy all the time here in America. I imagine it's that way around the world. And it's really hard to tell what the sun's doing up there, Though we do have our clear days, and they're awesome. But you hardly ever see the cobalt blue sky you used to see during the daylight, and you hardly ever see, the diamond-studded carpet of stars at night like you used to see. It's been since in the 90s sometime, maybe early 90s, that the sky started to haze up and the sun turned white instead of its regular golden color. So the colors around us changed somewhat too. And most of us didn't even notice. I did, because I was living out there in nature at the time, and it was pretty visible. I didn't know anything about jets and chemtrails and stuff. I just knew that something had happened. Well, something's happening now. This bright moon, I think they're trying to block out the effects of the sun because there's some radiance in it that's there to activate DNA inside of human beings and animals and bring us into a new state of consciousness, step at a time. It's all part of the plan, just like that bright star in the southeastern sky with all of its pulsar colors. That's part of the radiance coming to Earth as well. I mean, again, it comes in twos and threes. The evidence is all around us. So, just notice the changes. Don't deny them. And when you see yourself denying them, because it's almost automatic. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. But when you see things like that, pay attention to the evidence. Appreciate what you see. Because it'll verify what's going on inside of you, which is a lot. Right now, in this day, in this time of the bright moon, every human being is feeling a kind of death inside. Now there are those who are sensitive, as I would call it, and feel this much more than others. Others, are so dumbed down, I'm sorry, and programmed, numb to their feelings, in other words, that they feel it as kind of an irritation, a little instability inside, because it seems like things just aren't working like they were before for them. So even those who are in deep sleeping states are bound to be a bit unstable these days as things change and the whole paradigm shifts. And you can't escape so easily because it won't be death. You won't be able to separate yourself and go back to the love, because the love will be there all the time. And this is truth. It's not some freaking fable that somebody made up and wrote down in a book called the Bible. This is what we see happening in this world today. What we see happening inside of ourselves. This is our reality. It's our truth. And those that are sensitive know this already. Or at least feel it on some deep way. some deep level. And the rest of us, man, there's a lot going on. And it's time we started paying attention before it's quote, quote, too late. And you're just a little love bunny and you can't be so dang grouchy anymore. So here goes. I'm in kind of a funky mood these last few days, these last few weeks. Then, you know, things are like catching up to me. You know? Stuff that I've put off for a long time. Said, hey, I ain't going to deal with that. That's something I don't want to deal with. So I'm just going to let it sit. That's dealing with it. Well, guess what? It's there now. And it's going to be dealt with. You ain't going to sit on your butt and do nothing and just let transcendency happen. Yeah, right. It'd be sweet if we could, and maybe some can get away with that. I bless you if you can. The rest of us, we got to ride, you know? So there's a bunch of stuff that's been buried inside of us, hidden for a long, long time from our conscious mind, our conscious memory. And so what we're doing today is we're unlocking some of that unconsciousness and bringing it back to life so you can see and remember and know and put some sense to what's going on here in this reality, you know. Now what you've been told for the most part in the past is history is a bunch of damn fables. I mean, you know, somebody sits down in a little room somewhere and somebody tells them what to cook up and they cook it up and put it in the books and that becomes history. You know, and it's always been a mystery why that is. Why would anyone want to lie to us about history? I mean, shit. It's sad enough the way it's told. I mean, you know, anything good that ever happened we swept away, you know. Seem to be like really negatively oriented beings. At least that's the scope of the fabled history that we're taught in schools and legends and myths and stuff like that. But the reality is the truth. The truth is becoming real, which is that we live in a state of love, that we exist always in this state, that is our natural state. So it's a reunion with yourself, with your heart in particular, which is the center of your being. And not just this flesh and blood thing that pumps blood, but the heart, the center of yourself, the place you exist, the place you are, the place you love to be, the truth that's inside of you. It's uncomfortable now, but it'll get a whole lot more that way as time goes on and things ease out and you start to understand what's really going on. It isn't death, it's life. It's death to the fables and legends. It's death to what we know of as ego, weakness. It's death to war. And I include the war between the sexes and every other little division we've created inside of our tiny little brains in order to find some difference between us and give us something to fight over. How silly is that? Oh, truth is becoming truth. And we ain't going to be living this way much longer. That's all there is to it. And thank God for that, man. That's a merciful thing to be able to change like this and become our reality of truth. You know, we've worked and struggled a lot here. We've carried a load, baby. Yep. We've carried a load, but most of us didn't even know we were doing it, so it don't matter. And those that did know they were doing it, well, they only knew a little of it. It doesn't matter. We're just beginning to find out what we really are, and that's the truth. It's been hidden from us for so long, so far away, so done with us. But it's coming back now. We are this living truth. And you know, I'm going to relate to you right now a little story. They kind of give you a little perspective. Maybe it'll have the ring of truth to it. That's for you to decide, I reckon. I reckon. So here goes. You know, I told you about the time there was this huge change on Earth when people were this beautiful. Well, not that we aren't so beautiful now, but were these more beautiful expressions of love. And, you know, something happened. This huge change came to the earth, genetic changes in human beings and earth and all of our animals and trees and so forth. And, you know, it really kind of shook things up and ruined our cities and sent us off in similar groups to basically the four corners, opposite corners of the earth to begin again. And you know, we were out there doing that in our various little areas. You know, it's the four major continents. You figure it out. As it was existing then, about as it is now. There have been some changes, but it was about the same. And so those people are out there and they're just getting the hang of these more terrestrial bodies, you know. We had been of lighter substance before and much more enlightened and much more in tune with the realm of spirit and the dimensions of heart. You know, all of creation. We were a lot more in tune. That now we were in these terrestrial bodies and here we are. You know, I'm talking past history. And here we are. You know, getting used to it. And there's new feelings, there's, you know, pain. What's that? Stuff like that coming along, you know. But it hadn't been too bad. And folks were starting to get on with it, you know, and starting to communicate with one another around the world again, you know. But these devious little beings that brought us that change in the first place and densified us, then they like have another aspect to their little plan. And it's an invasion. Take over the peoples of the earth and train them in a different way. Giving them these terrestrial bodies with density. Now we're going to teach them how to use these things. How to be slaves. So we can feed on their energy and feel like God. You know, something like that. That's what the invaders were thinking. And there was a doorway, an opening, in an area approximately what we call Central America now, through which the invaders could come. Mind you, this is not a war. This is an invasion. The taking of a place by forceful means, but not with guns and bullets and bombs and laser beams and shit like that. No, this was an energetic thing, where thousands and thousands of entities, what we would call entities these days, came in through this doorway, this opening. And it was a sad thing. It's one of those things that's unknown in history. The written history, the spoken of history. But inside of you it's known, because everybody feels it. There was this dude back then, living in this Central American place. And I think he was called Quetzalcoatl, but he could have been called by many other names. Who knows? I think it was a lot further past than most people would give it credit for. I mean, many thousands of years, perhaps. But anyway, he was kind of the tuning fork for the tribe that he lived with. You know, they were like elegant beings for terrestrial, you know, and they were like really elevated in their thinking, you know. They were trying to get back in touch with the ancestors and the beings beyond them, you know, to feel what we felt before, to understand what that was. And they were making some progress in that direction, you know, and they were kind of holding, I guess that's why they were kind of in center, because they were kind of holding that center for the rest of the humanity. But something happened. They were tricked, you know, and the first death came into being. This dude, this Quetzalcoatl, he like laid himself down and unburdened himself and accepted the blessing of death by having his heart cut out. And you know, folks, we still feel it to this day. But that first act of violence, we didn't know violence before this. We didn't even know what it was. Didn't have a word for it, a definition. Yeah, there'd been a lot of crazy things happening, big changes, yeah, destruction, yeah. But there was nature. It wasn't violence. There's a difference, you see. And through this act of death came the invaders. They're invisible. We couldn't see them. We could feel them, but we couldn't stop them. Something we'd done invited them in. This first act of violence opened the door. And it was on top of a pyramid, and what they would call the temple of Quetzalcoatl at the time. And this stuff spread like wildfire across the earth. These invisible entities began to occupy the human beings and to bless them with unlove and to teach them what pain really is and how bad heartache can be. God. And that's when we began warring with each other, and our women seemed to go crazy, and the men, oh my God. Well, you know, all they could think about. It became very primal. Before this, those types of connections were much more sincere. And you didn't feel this burning inside, you know. The way you do now when we look upon one another, or the way we have, let's say that. I don't think now it's as bad. I think we're getting there, folks. But that's when it began. And we began to see each other as different. See, the invaders took over our consciousness, a part of our consciousness. And some people became immediately their slaves and began to do their bidding. See, because this was a conspiracy, baby. From outside of our atmosphere. They came here to change us and enslave us and make us into their little hooties to do their dirty deeds and let them feed off the energy of that. And they could feel like gods. You know? Because they weren't feeling like gods. They were feeling empty. And then we began to feel empty. All of us. It spread clear across the world like wildfire. You know, the earth has a history of quick changes. When it comes, when it's ready, it hatches. And baby, Better not be too near the nest, because that might be a big old thing coming out of that egg. You never know. I tell you, it's crazier than hell, but that's unlocking part of the truth inside of you right now. Yep, that's helping you get there. See, we'd never known death before then, never. There was some form of recycling going on. We'd weave in and out a little bit, because you can only take, a few thousand years of this primitive life before it gets boring. Not really, never. But you know what I mean. A person gets, they need to recycle. You need to up your vibe. So we've been doing something like that. It wasn't death. We've been going in and out of spirit realm. I think it was by traveling. Kind of like what we call astral travel now, but something a little more refined than that. Yeah. Oh. So that's where we've been, guys. And this is like an act of love on our part, because we actually invited these beings in here. We invited the changes. We actually set the whole deal up ourselves. And you'll begin to remember that too as time goes on, if you're not already, because parts of it's coming through me, parts of it's coming through you now too. I know. It just happens. Just be ready. Give yourself as much quiet time as you can grab, and just absorb this stuff. Get some rest at night if you can. Some of us have to work for a living, so we don't always sleep normal hours, but hey, we do what we got to do and give ourselves all the quiet time we can get, so that we can absorb these things, get some rest, move along, become what we are. Because that thing that feels like death inside of you, that's the invader's way. That's the invader's energy. But guess what? There are brothers too. Brothers and sisters, because they do express the opposite polarities, kind of like we do. They've gotten real familiar with this. They've become attached to our heart and closed the door. And then into the consciousness. And try to close the door. And for many it works, for many it don't. But everybody experiences anguish because of this. And everybody goes through their trials. Because that's in everybody. Part of the rules. When you come into this world as a baby and you begin to absorb the energy around you and change and lose the love, you're absorbing the invader's energy. It's their way. We've given them essentially control of this world for quite some time, ever since old Quetzalcoatl laid down and died. See how many sacrifices have been made for you, so that you could come to this day, go through all of this experience, and come to this day of harvesting, where we could literally let this death go and live as we used to live, the elegant beings that we are. Now this crusty old body that we carry, it's a beautiful thing. We love it, and we don't want to give it up. It gives us pleasure and pain. There's feeling in it. It's kind of fun. Even when it's harsh and you're, going through the throes of death, stuff like it, there's a side of us so joyful that feels it and doesn't want to leave it. And wants to keep this thing going and keep it from getting old. That's what another thing that started happening then when the invaders first came, was people began to age. We didn't even know what that was. Never happened before. Now it did. Because the energy of the invaders would wear you down. And you could only take so much. You'd have to go home and get a recharge. And that's what death is. Going home and get a recharge. A lot of people get stuck in between because the invaders messed with them so much they don't know who they are. They're lost. But they're not lost. They've chosen to be that way. It's an experience. They wanted to feel They wanted to share a little torment. They wanted to be the boogeyman. They felt it. So they beat it. But they're coming home now. Ain't nobody staying out of the loop. Nobody's lost. Nobody ever was. Remember, we're just actors playing roles. Doing our thing, playing out our aspect of it. Until the day we no longer die and come back to life again. That truth is in you now. You feel it as peace. You feel it as graceful love. It's the harmony of your very own heart, the harmony of your own creation speaking to you now in the form of feeling. And inside, you're feeling something let go. Something that's held a hard lock on your heart for a long time. It's beginning to soften up, to release its grip on your heart, to open that door to the conscious feeling of life, and to remember who and what you are. And yes, this is the death you've been waiting for. The death to all those ideas of unconsciousness, of weakness. We're letting go of that paradigm. We fulfilled ourselves in it. We served out our obligation to the invaders. And now we transform it by remembering who we are. And as we remember, the invaders remember as well. And every being throughout this reality becomes an extension of love and lives it and knows that it appreciates the finer aspects of it, knows its own heart, knows why it's doing this, appreciates, feels, loves, and enjoys, and transforms it, and brings everything back into that perspective of people living in harmony with all that is, and everything living in harmony with the people of this Mother Earth. It's time to get reacquainted now too. Our cousins are coming back. And I'm not going to tell you from where, I'll let you figure it out. But there was a division of us that held out and held the heart over on what we call the other side. And they're coming home now to visit us. And we're coming home with them too. It's what that longing's all about, beneath the pain inside. It's what's driven us into the arms of one another in the most crazy ways. It's what makes us hungry and thirst. It's what makes us feel. But those are shallow feelings compared to what is beneath that home, heart, truth, harmony, love, peace. Only now we can finally appreciate it and be that love that we are. It's just time. We fulfill our contract. So now we're letting it go. So after this day, you're going to feel a whole lot better about things, and it's going to go a little easier for you. Because we've decided, you know, us, human beings, have decided that we don't need to kill ourselves trying anymore. That's our collective being speaking. The one being that we all truthfully are. And God, we love you guys. And you are the love of our hearts, our cosmic hearts, the sinner thing, the thing that we are. Babies, I love you. Be truth.